Hello everybody, welcome to Sir Chua's Accounting Lessons PH, and this is Discussion 9, Property, Plant and Equipment Part 2, and we will be talking about modes of acquisition and borrowing cost. At the end of the video, you should be able to explain the different PPE modes of acquisition, calculate capitalizable borrowing cost on general borrowings, and calculate capitalizable borrowing cost on specific borrowings. Before anything else, please like, share, and subscribe to Sir Chua's Accounting Lessons PH, and hit the notification bell button to alert you of the latest video lessons. For all of your questions, comments, and suggestions, please put them down in the comment section below. And for webinar and speakership invites, please send me a message at kevintroy.chua1994@gmail.com. Thank you very much for your utmost support for Sir Chua's Accounting Lessons PH, and may these videos continue to help students in their online learning and academic development, and may these videos continue to help teachers in enhancing their lesson plans and teaching methodologies. Thank you for trusting Sir Chua's Accounting Lessons PH as your online learning partner. In the last lesson, we discussed the different general principles that we have for property, plant, and equipment. And now let's dig deeper with our learning and let's talk about the different modes of acquisition, and then later on in the discussion we will be talking about also borrowing cost. Okay, so from the previous lesson, I've introduced you to 4 types of PPE acquisition, which is purchase, self-construction, deferred payment contracts, and exchange. So let's talk about them one by one. Acquisition by purchase. Acquiring PPE items by purchase is by far one of the most common methods of asset acquisition. Kasi yan ang pinakamadali eh. Acquisition, may pera ang company, bili. Tapos ang usapan, okay? The cash price equivalent of the PPE is the cost of the item at recognition date. And remember always that the cost of a PPE includes cash paid plus any other directly attributable cost like yung ating pong freight charges na binayaran para ma-deliver sa atin yung PPE and any installation cost. Lalo na po sa malalaking equipment and machinery na kailangan po ng installation to make it ready for operations, okay? You simply debit the asset account related to that purchase and credit cash. And in any case, on account mo siya binili, ganun din naman, babayaran mo rin naman yung accounts payable mo related to that purchase. Okay, so the most easiest way for an entity to acquire PPE is syempre bibili. Dahil kung may pera naman yung company, edi bumili na lang, di ba? Okay, second one is acquisition by self-construction. Entities may opt to construct their own property, plant, and equipment. So let's say, for example, kaya naman nila mag-construct ng sarili ng office building. Why not, diba? Okay. So the total construction cost will be the basis for the asset cost. Now, talking about construction cost, in a manufacturing perspective po kasi, you need to understand these 3 words that you see here, which we call materials used, labor cost incurred, and overhead. So kapag po kasi tayo nagko-construct ng asset or gumagawa or nagma-manufacture ng asset, pag sinabi pong materials used, ito po yung lahat ng raw materials na ginamit sa production. Okay? Pagka naman po sinabing labor cost incurred, syempre, yung mga trabahador mo, yung construction workers mo, or in the case of a manufacturing of products, yung mga trabahador mong gumagawa ng produkto mo, syempre, pinapasahod mo sila. So, ang tawag po dun sa mga pasahod mo dun sa mga trabahador mo para mabuo yung asset or mabuo yung products mo is labor cost. And then, overhead naman po is lahat ng cost na hindi direct, pero ginagastos pa rin natin para sa mismong asset construction or manufacturing ng company. For example, hindi man po masyadong related sa paggawa ng product yung factory supervisor sa isang factory, kailangan mo pa rin siyang pasahurin because yung kanyang ginagawa as factory supervisor is siya yung nag-oversee ng operations ng factory. Pero hindi siya mismo yung gumagawa ng product, diba? So, ganun po yung ibig sabihin natin ng overhead. All other indirect cost na hindi po materials hindi direct materials at hindi po direct labor. Lahat po ng indirect cost of production ang tawag po doon overhead. Okay? So, yung tatlong magkakapatid pong yan, materials, labor, and overhead, yan po yung basis ng ating asset cost. Okay, let's have problem number 1. Megaland Construction has building construction as their own revenue generating activity. So, yun po ang kanilang business. They create buildings, okay? And specifically, it's their service is building construction. The entity decided to construct a new administrative office building para po sa kanila, okay? The following relevant cost information is provided. So, binigay po yung information about yung ginastos nating materials and labor sa buildings that we do for our clients and then yung buildings for own use. However, syempre, na-accumulate lang naman po lahat ng indirect cost na ginagastos natin. So, the total overhead is 27 million. Ang kailangan natin gawin is i-allocate yung 27 million na yan dun sa buildings na for clients and ano yung para sa atin na ginagawa natin as our new building. Now, Megaland normally applies overhead at 80% of direct labor cost. So, ang sabi po dyan is, ang madalas na gawin daw po ng Megaland under normal costing system nila is kung ano po yung 80% ng direct labor, yun na yung overhead. Okay? Now, calculate the cost of both constructions is number 1, overhead is allocated on the basis of direct labor cost, and number 2, overhead is applied normally to buildings for clients and then any incremental amount will be applied to the building for own use. Now, for us to understand it better, let's solve the problem. Okay, for the first one, this is our solution. So, isa-isahin po natin. Lista lang po natin yung direct materials na ginamit natin for buildings for clients, which is 50 million, and building for own use natin na 10 million. And then the labor cost for the buildings for clients is 30 million, and then for own use is 6 million. Now, for number 1, ang sabi po sa atin is overhead is allocated on the basis of direct labor cost. So, ang gagawin po natin is gagawan po natin ng ratio si direct labor cost ng buildings for clients and yung direct labor cost ng building for own use. So, 30 plus 6 is 36. So, yung 27 million natin na total overhead, ganito na po natin siya i-allocate. For clients is 27 million times 30 over 36. Saan po galing yung 30 over 36? Ito po, yung direct labor cost na 30. Okay? 30 over 36. For own use naman po, 27 million times 6 over 36. Saan galing po yan? Ito po yung 6 over the total of 36. So, ang mapupunta pong overhead na allocated for the buildings for clients is 22,500,000, and then for own use naman po is 4,500,000. Magkano po yung building for own use natin? 20,500,000. How about the buildings for clients? 102,500,000. Okay, di ba? Easy lang. Number 2, overhead is applied normally to buildings for clients and the incremental amount is applied to building for own use. O, sige, paano po ba yung concept ng incremental? Ganun pa rin po ang starting point, lista lang po natin yung materials and labor nung parehong buildings na ginagawa natin. Pero ang sabi is, applied normally to buildings for clients. Paano po ba yung sinasabing applied normally? The Megaland Company normally applies overhead at 80% of direct labor cost. Ibig sabihin, kung ano po yung direct labor cost, so in this case, yung 30 million, yun daw po yung kukuhanan mo ng 80%, yun na daw po yung overhead mo. Okay? So, 30 million times 80%, 24 million. Tapos, kung ano man daw po yung tira-tira, yun na lang daw po yung ilalagay nyo sa building for own use. The incremental amount is applied to the building for own use. Kung ang ating pong overhead ay 27 million at ang na-allocate na po natin na overhead sa ating building for clients ay 24 million, automatically yung overhead po natin allocated for the building for own use is 3 million. Just get the total of the two and then you got building for own use of total cost of 19 million and then for clients is 104 million. O, diba? Easy lang. I hope that you understand our problem number 1. Let's proceed to another concept. Acquisition by deferred payments. When entities opt not to directly involve direct cash outlay in the acquisition of PPE, the entity may enter into a deferred payment contract using, for example, notes payable. So, kung ayaw magbayad agad ng talagang buo isang bagsakan ng company, pwede po silang yung tinatawag nating deferred payments. Okay, so paano po ba yung deferred payments na yan? Let's discuss it through problem number 2. Okay. Okay. Doraemon Company purchased an equipment amounting to 200,000. The asset was acquired in exchange for a 200,000 zero interest bearing note payable in 5 years. So, hindi daw po tayo diretsong nagbayad ng 200,000. Tayo po ay nag-promissory note ng 200,000 payable in 5 years, zero interest bearing, but alam nyo naman po kapag ka non-interest bearing, nasa loob yung interest, hindi po talaga walang interest. Okay? The prevailing interest rate for similar transaction is 12%. Magkano po natin i-record yung asset na binili natin? Hindi po 200,000. Okay? We just need to get the present value of the 200,000. So ganito po siya. Yung 200,000 natin na asset cost, multiply po natin sa present value ng 12% at 5 years. Okay? So, 1 plus 0.12, which is 1.12 raised to negative 5. Kung ano man pong lalabas na factor, multiply it by 200,000, and then the asset will be recorded at this amount, 113,485.37. Yan po ang ating acquisition cost in any case na tayo po ay nag-release ng non-interest bearing note. Okay, di ba easy lang yung ating mga acquisition problems? Okay, let's continue. Paano naman po kapag ka-exchange? An entity may opt to exchange non-monetary asset, like for example, old equipment for a new equipment, or one asset to another asset. Land, papalitan mo ng machinery. Okay? Exchange. Exchange of assets might have commercial substance or no commercial substance. So, kailan po natin masasabi that the exchange transaction has a commercial substance? An exchange is considered to have commercial substance if the future cash flow, which refers to the timing and amount of cash flows, change as a result of the exchange transaction. So, you can experience or you can see that there are changes in the future cash flows in the company because of the because of the exchange that has happened dun sa between two entities. Okay? So if the two parties to the exchange experience changes in economic position, then we can say that the transaction has commercial substance. Okay. Always remember these three concepts. If the exchange has commercial substance, then we should recognize any gains and losses directly in the exchange transaction. But if the exchange has no commercial substance pero may na-receive pa rin pong cash, okay? Actually, hindi receive, received on the part of the other party na exchanger. So, kung perspective natin, tayo yung makikipagpalit, pwede kasing tayo yung magbayad. Parang ganon, okay? So, you need to defer gains, but pag may loss po, diretso nating i-recognize. But if the exchange has no commercial substance, pero may cash involved, then gain is recognized partially, but loss is recognized in full, okay? So, let's discuss some problems involving commercial substance. Problem number 3. Shizuka Company exchanged their old equipment for a new one. The transaction is deemed to have commercial substance. The following information is made available. So, binigay po sa inyo yung original cost at accumulated depreciation nung ating nagamit ng equipment or yung ating old equipment. So, as you can see, original cost less accumulated depreciation, the carrying value at that time is 1 million. Okay? And then the fair value is 1,200,000. And then the new equipment has a list price of 1,800,000, which is allowed with a trade-in allowance of 800,000. Okay? So, pag sinabing trade-in allowance, parang you give a leeway na, no, na hindi na talaga siya i-acquire ng 1,800,000 because may ipapalit ka naman. Parang ganun yung dating niya. Okay? From the given, hindi, kasi parang ano siya parang unfair naman na magbabayad ka pa ng buo na 1,800,000 exchange transaction nga to. Diba? So later, pagka kinompute, mas magigets nyo. From the given information, calculate the amount that will be recorded as cost of the new asset, the gain or loss on disposal, then let's prepare the entry to record that. Okay? Sige po. Our first requirement is the recorded as cost of the new asset. So, magkano po yung cost of the new asset? Ganito po siya. the list price of the new equipment, ang starting point natin, kasi syempre ang target natin, makuha natin si new equipment, di ba? 1,800,000. Pero nga, dahil po ito po ay exchange transaction, hindi naman po tayo pagbabayarin ng 1,800,000 talaga dahil may ka-exchange naman siyang used equipment. So, you deduct any trade-in allowance of 800,000, the cash payment needed is 1 million. Now, compare, i-add mo po doon, so parang ang dating, i-add mo po doon sa 1 million na ibabayad ng company yung fair value nung used equipment, which is 1,200,000. So, the cost of new equipment is 2,200,000. Now, is there any gain or loss on disposal? Check natin. If the fair value of the used equipment is 1,200,000, you compare it with the carrying value of the used equipment. So, dito lang tayo iikot dyan. Parang ang dating, kung ang fair value niya ngayon is 1,200,000, then the carrying value is 1,500,000 minus 500,000, which is 1 million. There is a gain on disposal of equipment of 200,000. Okay? So, paano po natin i-record yung ganitong transaction? You debit the new equipment to the cost of the new equipment. May wang-wang. Okay. So, you debit the new equipment to the cost of the new equipment that we have calculated, which is 2,200,000. And then, syempre, yung old equipment ay i-dispose na po. So, tatanggalin mo na po yung accumulated depreciation by debiting it at 500,000. Credit mo na rin po yung old equipment cost na 1,500,000. And then, credit mo yung cash na babayaran mo na 1 million. And then, credit gain on disposal 200,000. Okay. Now, for problem 4 naman po, it's actually medyo same, no? But the fair value of the used equipment is now 700,000. Okay? So, yun lang po yung nagbago dito sa problem 4. Now, check naman natin ngayon kung may gain or loss. Okay? So, again, that's the same drill that you know. The list price ang ating starting point, which is the list price of the new equipment, which is 1,800,000. Pero meron po tayong trade-in allowance na 800,000, kaya ang cash payment na lang pong kailangan is 1 million. And then you add the fair value of the used equipment, which is 700,000. The cost of the new equipment is 1,700,000. Now, if the fair value is 700,000 but the carrying value is 1 million, there is a loss kasi pababa, 'di ba? Yung galing kang carrying value, yung fair value mo pababa. So magkakaroon ka talaga ng loss doon, 300,000. So for your entry, you just debit the new equipment with the cost of the new equipment of 1,700,000. Tatanggalin na po natin yung depreciation ng old equipment na 500,000, and then we also debit the loss on disposal, which is 300,000. Okay, and then credit na po natin yung old equipment para mawala na sa records, 1,500,000, and don't forget yung cash na babayaran natin, which is 1 million. Okay, I think that's nice. Now let's talk about IAS 23 borrowing cost. Borrowing costs that are directly attributable to the acquisition, construction, or production of a qualifying asset form part of the cost of that asset. Other borrowing costs are recognized as an expense. Mga kapatid, paano po ba ang premise nitong borrowing cost? Ganito po kasi nangyayari. Ang company po minsan, wala namang pera agad yan talaga, no? Or meron pera pero syempre hindi naman kailangang ubusin lang sa asset construction kasi we have so much operating activities to pay for as well, like payment for our current liabilities, payment for our operating expenses, purchases of inventories, or kung ano pa po yung mga iba nating operating activities. So syempre po, yung cash ng company, hindi naman lahat yan mapupunta sa asset construction, no? So, ang ginagawa po ng company is nanghihiram ng pera, okay? Under notes or loans. And syempre, yung hinihiram natin na pera is may kaakibat pong interest, 'di ba? So, yung pag sinabi pong borrowing cost, meron po tayong part dun sa interest na kailangan nating i-capitalize as asset. Bakit? Kasi nga, nanghiram ka ng pera para makapag-construct ng asset. Eh ano ba ang kakabit nung panghihiram mo ng pera, di ba interest? So parang ang dating, yung interest mo, nagkaroon ka ng interest dahil kailangan mong gumawa ng asset. So parang related na ngayon yung interest dun sa cost ng asset na i-record mo. Parang ganun yung nangyari. Okay? So ang sabi ng IAS 23, kailangan ika-capitalize mo yung borrowing cost related to the asset construction. Pero, applicable lang po ang borrowing cost sa mga qualifying asset. And when can we say that an asset is a qualifying asset? A qualifying asset is a asset that necessarily takes a substantial period of time to get ready for its intended use or sale. Yung mga hindi mabilisan na nabubuo. Okay? For example, manufacturing plant, power generation facility, our intangible assets, and investment property. Ayun po. So, hindi po lahat ng asset construction or minamanufacture ay qualifying asset ha. Nag-a-apply lang po ang IAS 23 sa qualifying asset na matagal gawin. It takes a substantial period of time to get ready for its intended use or sale. Okay, first thing that we need to consider is about specific borrowing. According to paragraph 12 of IAS 23, to the extent that the entity borrows funds specifically for the purpose of obtaining a qualifying asset, the entity shall determine the amount of borrowing costs eligible for capitalization as the actual borrowing costs incurred on that borrowing during the period, less any investment income on the temporary investment of those borrowings. Ang hirap i-analyze ng words lang, lagyan natin ng amount yung sinasabi dito sa theory natin. Okay, problem number 5. On January 1, 2020, GJet Company obtained a loan amounting to 5 million specifically to finance the construction of their new building. O, ano pong sabi? Specifically. So, yung 5 million po yan ay hiniram specifically para po sa construction ng ating new building. So, this is specific borrowing. The interest rate related to the borrowing is 12%. The proceeds of the loan was temporarily invested, which earned the interest income of 120,000. How much is the capitalizable interest? Madali lang po pag specific borrowing. You just get the loan amount and you multiply it to the interest rate. So, the interest is 600,000. Okay? And then, you deduct po yung, kasi po, minsan ang nangyayari, pag nakukuha na po yung loan, ay ano pong ginagawa? The proceeds are temporarily invested. So, parang pinagkakakitaan pa nila yung hiniram nilang pera. Siyempre, mag-earn yun ng interest. Okay? Interest income naman. So, pero ang kailangan lang daw pong gawin is i-deduct po natin yung interest income na yun on temporary investment. So, ang i-add po natin sa asset cost na capitalizable amount of the interest is 480,000. Okay? That's it. Sige po. Doon naman po tayo sa general borrowing. Sometimes, nanghihiram ang pera ng company generally na parang hindi naman sila nanghihiram ng pera dahil lang para dun sa asset na yon. There are also parang basta kailangan natin tong tong perang to, hiramin natin. But not necessarily for the construction of the asset, though nagbe-benefit din siya doon kasi nagagamit din yung hiniram mong pera para doon, although hindi siya specifically para doon sa asset construction na yon. Okay? The amount of capitalizable borrowing cost is equal to the average carrying amount of the asset during the period multiplied by a capitalization rate or average interest rate. The capitalizable borrowing cost shall not exceed the actual interest. Okay? Sorry pag wordings parang medyo di natin magets, no? Pero mas nagigets natin siya pag kino-compute na natin. Okay? Sige, problem 6 tayo. An entity had the following borrowings during the year, both for asset construction and other purposes. Ito po ay general borrowing lang, hindi po talaga para dun sa asset construction. Hindi man po sabihin sa inyo na general borrowing, mababasa nyo po sa problem yon. Katulad nito, borrowings during the year, both for asset construction and other purposes. Ibig sabihin, hindi siya specific dun sa asset construction lang. Kasi sinabi, it's both for asset construction and other purposes. So, nanghiram po siya ng tig 5 million, bank loan, tsaka long-term note. Okay? Sige, yan yon. Tig 5 million, yung isa 12%, yung isa 8%. Tapos, nung nagko-construct daw po yung asset, nung kino-construct, rather, yung asset, ito po yung mga nagagastos natin. How do we compute for the capitalizable borrowing cost kung sakaling general borrowing naman? Our first step is to compute for the weighted average interest rate. Okay. So, kung maaalala nyo, yung hiniram natin sa bank loan is 5 million na meron 12% interest. So, just simply multiply that. The interest is 600,000. Doon naman po sa ating long-term note, you simply multiply it to 8%, 400,000. Okay? So, the total principal is 10 million and the total interest is 1 million. Ang gagawin nyo po, i-divide nyo po si 1 million papunta dito kay 10 million. Ang makukuha nyo po, yung weighted average interest rate na 10%. Again, i-divide nyo po si interest na 1 million kay 10 million na principal. The weighted average interest rate is 10%. Our step 2 is to compute for the average accumulated expenditures. Ito pong mga nandito natin, ito na daw po yung ginastos para mabuo yung asset na ginagawa natin. Okay? So, gumastos sila ng 5 million, 2, 5, 3, 1, 5, and 5. Ang gagawin po natin is magko-compute po tayo ng average accumulated expenditures based on the fraction of time. For example, kung January 1, edi buong 12 months yan aandar. So, you just simply multiply 5 million by 12 over 12. Syempre, that's still 5 million. Paano naman pag March 31? That will be regarded as anong kasunod ng March? April 1. So, bilang kayo, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December. 9 months lang yon. So, 9 over 12. So, yung 2,500,000 natin, i-multiply natin ng 9 over 12, 1,875,000. Then, do the same for all these three. Magzi-zero po talaga yung December kasi December 31. End of year na po. Yan. Okay? Pero kung December 1 yan, anong lalagay nyo? Siyempre, aandar pa yung buong buwan ng Desyembre, isang buwan pa yon, 1 over 12 naman kung kung December 1 yan. Okay? Just get the total of these. Yan po yung tinatawag nating average accumulated expenditures. Now, multiply the average expenditures, yung nakita po natin na 9,250,000, dun po sa ating weighted average interest rate na 10%, 925,000. Okay? Now, i-compare po natin yung actual borrowing cost versus dun sa nakuha natin from the average percentages. Okay? Ang actual borrowing cost po natin ay 1 million. Saan galing yung 1 million na actual borrowing cost? Ito po, oh. Ayan, ito po yon, yung 1 million na interest. Yun po kasi yun talagang alam nating yun na mismo yung interest eh. Okay? Pero, i-compare po natin dun sa borrowing cost from the calculation, which is the smaller one, which is 925,000. Always remember that the capitalizable borrowing cost should not exceed yung ating pong actual borrowing cost. Okay? Dapat hindi nag-exceed eh. So, kung ang actual borrowing cost natin ay 1 million rather, pero yung borrowing cost natin from our calculations is 925. So, your capitalizable borrowing cost is 925,000. Ngayon, yung step 5 bonus na lang yan. Determine the interest expense. Okay? So, yung borrowing cost po kasi talaga natin na interest is 1 million. Pero ang attributable lang daw po sa ating borrowing is 925,000. So, yung 75,000 ay ilalagay po natin as interest expense. Yung 925,000 po ay capitalizable as an asset. Now, what if the construction is financed by both specific and general borrowing? Okay? Now, and further assume that the entity borrowed 6 million with 12% interest specifically to finance the asset construction. So, magkasama na sila. Okay? Pareho po general and specific borrowing. Si specific borrowing ay borrowing na para dun lang talaga sa asset na yon. Unlike sa general borrowing, iba-iba ang purpose. Okay? Paano gagawin natin dyan? Madali lang yan. Okay? Step 1 is kung ano po yung nakuha natin kanina na average expenditures, ima-minus nyo lang po yung amount ng specific borrowing na nangyari. Okay? Kung ano po yung weighted average accumulated expenditures, ma-minus lang po natin yung specific borrowing natin, which is 6 million. This is the expenditure attributable to general borrowing, 3,250,000. Now, compute for the specific borrowing cost. Madali lang naman pag specific borrowing cost kasi kung magkano yung binarrow, Mumultiply mo lang sa interest rate. So, for the specific borrowing cost, 720,000. But in any case, yung ating pong specific borrowing cost, sabi nga sa inyo, pag may interest yan na na-earn through temporary investment, ma-minus nyo po yun, ha? Okay. And then step 3 is to compute for the general borrowing cost. Okay, paano kunin yung general borrowing cost? 'Di ba ito pong 3,250,000 yung para sa general borrowing natin? Multiply lang po natin dun sa weighted average percentage or interest rate po natin kanina na nakuha, which is 10%. Okay, so the general borrowing is 325,000. And then pag-add nyo lang yung dalawa, ang specific borrowing natin na capitalizable borrowing cost is 700,000 and then sa general naman po 325 for a total of 1,045,000. Okay, pero i-check nyo mabuti ha, kasi kung yung general natin capitalizable with borrowing cost is 325,000, check mo dun sa original, which is 1 million yung talagang general borrowing natin. So yun yung mas lower, yung general na 325,000. Okay, I hope you understand our lesson today, and our next lesson is depreciation. Again, please like, share, and subscribe to Sir Chua's Accounting Lessons PH, and hit the notification bell button to alert you of the latest video lessons. For all of your questions, comments, and suggestions, please put them down in the comment section below and message me at kevintroy1994@gmail.com. This has been Sir Chua's Accounting Lessons PH College Edition. To God be all the glory, honor, and praise. Thank you and have a great day. Sarangeo.